So how did George Russell get the penalty that he got and the one that they caught, Oscar Piastri, get 10 seconds? This is British bias. This is chaos. This is agency. Surely the FIA are set fair to rule and regulate over the industry that is F1 in a way that is true and fair at each and every single time. What are we doing therefore? You can forgive people for crying out about British bias even if it was nothing of the sort. Why? Because that's what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Honestly, it's techier than techie things. We'll go into Oscar Piastri. We'll talk about Hulkenberg. We'll talk about Max Verstappen and where that leaves him as far as the championship. And so too, we'll talk about Sir Lewis Hamilton and all the other relevant, most pertinent F1-centric threads on the back of a British Grand Prix that promised much, but delivered very little, in my humble opinion. It was staccato. It was iambic pentameter. It was very stop and start, and I didn't like it. I'll be honest with you. I expected Maximilian Verstappen was going to go really well, deliver upon the promise that was the God-tier qualifying lap yesterday. But again, it was rain circumstance and it was changing variables. Of course, therefore, for Maximilian Verstappen, it was going to be difficult now. UK bias says yes. Franz Hermann, Piastri penalty was fair, but not 10 seconds. So how can it be fair there, Franz? Surely you're Mr. Contradiction in terms. 5 seconds maybe, but it felt like they ruined his race. Go on, let's pay some homage to one Nico Hulkenberg in the first place, because it was redemption time, eh? The scenes were edifying. All of Stake Sauber, soon to be Audi, celebrating with a chap, and I don't hate it. Do you know what I mean? I remember once upon a time I thought Nico Hulkenberg was going to be the next one. If you go back and look on Wikipedia and see his track record going in to Formula One through all the feeder formula, he was winning. It's twin of Sir Lewis Hamilton, so therefore he was of course going to be the next one. Of course he was. The stats on paper even said so. And then you get this bloody 15-year period during which no podiums to speak of. It's techie for Nico Hulkenberg. His career, I mean, sometimes it lays to waste at the altar of fortuitous circumstances or lack thereof. He was set to win Brazil many moons ago. And then there was a cheeky incident between him and Sir Lewis Hamilton, which put paid to that. Did it not? That would have been a podium at the very least. And now, all of a sudden, Jonathan Wheatley joins Sauber, soon to be Audi. And that team's doing one of these parabolic settings. They're scoring points. There's momentum behind them. Binotto's there. They have an idea. They have a North Star, some strategic objectives that they can follow. And that's worthy of note. Peter D. Wins, a friend of the channel, said once upon a time that Carlos Sainz Jr. should sack off Williams and join himself Audi. Have them build a project in his own image. And I thought that Peter D. Windsor was insane then, that he was barking at the wrong tree. Look now, with the benefit of hindsight, I am Monday morning quarterbacking, am I not? That doesn't seem to be such a bad shout now that you've got Messrs. Wheatley and Binotto over there doing bits. Props to Nico Hulkenberg, therefore, for getting what he was due. I'm still crying, says Miami. I don't hate it too much. Franz Hermann, I guess stewards came to their conclusion 10 seconds because of the condition. We'll talk to that too much, because I've got all that at hand. Something like, how does it feel to wait so long only to throw a Lego? Yeah, also G3. We'll talk about it. So somebody pitched Chris Medland, legendary journo, one of the goatiest ones, always in the know, always at the forefront of all of the relevant F1 narratives. As somebody starts their car outside, just very sexy engine sound. Chris Medland put it to Nico Hulkenberg this way. How does it feel to have to wait 15 years for your first podium? And when you get your first podium trophy, it's Lego. To which Nico Hulkenberg, very Nico Hulkenberg, responded, listen, I don't mind, because my little one loves Lego. That means that she can play with it. Bravo, sir. Proper. And you would have seen the scenes by now of ecstasy with Bortoletto celebrating. They're a proper team all of a sudden. It feels like there's a swathe of momentum behind them. What's triggered that, if not for Jonathan Wheatley, the legendary sporting director of the Bulls that are red? It feels like at this point, all fingers point as far as culpability back to Horner, right? He's not only making Red Bull weaker in real time by the second by dint of his presence, but he's making all these other teams stronger. Jonathan Wheatley wanted to be team principal, realised there was no room at the Red Bull Inn for that, whilst Christian Horner presided over that team, left, and now look what he's doing. He's got that team ticking with Mattia Binotto. They're moving in the right direction. Oh, the humanity. Chaotic scenes, not to mention bloody Rob Marshall and Pedromo. You saw Pedromo up on the bloody podium today for McLaren. Look what they've done. There's an exodus happening at the Bulls that are red, meaning ultimately accumulating potentially in one Maximilian Verstappen fall. Some say soon to be 5-time champion, leaving that team. Let's talk about that as well, chat, because it's techie. This Maximilian Verstappen circumstance is chaotic, uncharacteristic error on the 4-time champ. And again, the context is as follows. He had as near as makes no difference, 0 downforce. The rear wing looked like this. That's exactly how thin it was. And so, of course, when the rain comes, more rain than was anticipated and or forecast, it was always going to be struggle settings for Maximilian Verstappen. But yeah, and still, because he's been so good, so devoid of errors of the unforced variety, I expected him to at least podium. Do you know what I mean? Potentially even, at best, fend off a fire-breathing dragon in Lando Norris, just because that's a Maximilian Verstappen thing to do. It's not unreasonable of us, you and me as Max Verstappen fans and fans of F1, to expect impossible things at this stage from Max Verstappen because he makes them routine. But it was an uncharacteristic error. Oversteer settings. We saw a similar instance a couple Grand Prix ago, remember, when Charles Leclerc ended up overtaking him then. But then Maximilian Verstappen was able to correct for it in real time and crack on. This time, no dice. Oh, the humanity. To see Maximilian Verstappen spin out is chaotic. Felt like I was watching The Matrix. You know, the glitch where he sees the black cat cross him twice. I was like, surely this can't be Maximilian Verstappen. A mistake. Oh, the humanity. But of course, Maximilian Verstappen, notwithstanding the data bank, the excellence, the sporting endeavour par excellence even, notwithstanding all of the aforementioned, he's still a human being. Can only do so much. The RB21 can only go so far. And in true literary fashion, there is no outperforming the car. That car is doo-doo. And they tried their best. They did try. But it's still doo-doo. As versus not the slowest car on the grid, unless it's in the hands of Tsunoda-san, who finished yet again last of the runners to finish. In the hands of Maximilian Verstappen, it's capable of doing things, at least scoring decent points. But that doesn't mean to say it's a rocket ship, as so many Maximilian Verstappen naysayers will put forth as their principal supposition. Now it's getting techier than techie things as far as Max Verstappen and his future. Because you know he's a gazillion points behind in the championship, 69 behind Oscar Piastri to be precise. Oscar Piastri now sits on 234 points, 226 for Lando Norris. This is a two-tier championship now. That's the best way of characterising it. To do any other thing would be disingenuous. I mean, 8 points between the two McLaren bods. Therefore, it will get techier than techie things between. We'll come to Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris and the dynamic between the two, how that might play out. But for now, focusing on Max, 69 points. That's nearly 3 race victories without the likes of Oscar Piastri scoring a single point. I mean, to say it's unrealistic, to say it's Mission Impossible Tom Cruise settings, understatement of the year. It's going to get techie and there will be ramifications. Maximilian Verstappen spoke to this. He says he's not even really fuming, that he didn't want to point too much to the bad luck, the lack of fortune or fortuitous circumstances or lack thereof. He says this season, this comes from Ronald Vording in this instance, I think, not Eric Van Horen. He says this season he feels like he's in a casino with very small chances of winning and has been on the podium more often than not. Team boss didn't want to be drawn on this, Christian Horner. He said that the focus now for Red Bull needs to be that making sure that the wind tunnel is 90% on 2026. Oh, the humanity. Christian Horner is abandoning 2025, focusing now on 2026. How do you think that's going to fly with Team Verstappen, who have performance clauses coming out the ears of Maximilian Verstappen's contract, that we're abandoning 2025 halfway through it? that we're sacrificing our endeavours at the altar of Maximilian Verstappen's 5th consecutive championship. There is only one driver in F1 history who's done such a thing. He has a name, and his name is Michael the Regenmeister, aka the Red Baron Schumacher. So what are we doing here? Helmut Marko came close before with Sebastian Vettel, but how about now? You will never get another chance potentially to win 5 consecutive. And this is what we're messing about with. Now you're going to invest in 2026, but it makes sense. Of course, on the back of the multitudinous errors and foibles, the mechanical and aerodynamic of that RB21, it's been chaotic. Understeer to snap oversteer. What are we doing? The aerodynamic efficiency that made the RB19 one of the most dominant machines that we've ever seen in F1 history is gonzo. Faded to black, nowhere to be seen. And that, ladies and gentlemen, leaves Max Verstappen and Christian Horner with a problem. The rumour is that Max demands, Team Verstappen even demands, that potentially Hulk smash. Absolutely, John. Props to the chap, and you're far too kind as always, John. Maybe I've undersold the redeeming value of the story that is Nico Hulkenberg finally getting the podium after 15 years, delivering upon the not insubstantial promise of his career, feeder formula settings. But go on, let's do Horner. Because again, it sounds like Team Verstappen, if word on the F1 curb is to be believed, Team Verstappen will want a couple things if indeed they're going to continue as a going concern. At the balls that are red, the house that Horner built through to 2028 when their contract's supposed to end. And that, in the first instance, means that Christian Horner might either be gonzo or see his powers substantially diminished. This is a very different structure that they're looking on. Remember, McLaren have all these segments. Zach Brown is the CEO. He manages all the commercial segments of McLaren. Then you've got Andrea Stella. He's the team principal in charge of racing operations. And then on this side, you've got technical guy Rob Marshall, the last front wing bender. All the schemes of delegation, do you know what I mean, are nicely compartmentalised. There is no emperor standing at the wall, just like Christian Horner is. Team principal, head honcho, dictator in kind. Max Verstappen is saying, listen, and Team Verstappen, more to the point, is saying, well, it hasn't been, we haven't had a car for at least 24 months. This ship has been going gonzo. Lest we forget, Nostradamus Verstappen said this team will implode unless we do something about Christian Horner. That was many moons ago now. And what's happened? Charlie Mividja now is cottoning on that his adopted son, even Christian Horner, it might be time for him to leave at the altar of misconduct gate, failure, a plethora of god-tier personnel who he's allowed to go out the door. And who's he replacing them with? You're telling me that they're going to replace Adrian Newey with, I don't know, Enrico Balbo and Pierre Rasher? Behave yourself. Absolutely no chance. And now we have the conversation about performance clauses, as we're less than 30 days away from the 31st of July, where many people are insinuating and speculating and conjecturing that Maximilian Verstappen, if he's outside the top 2 in the championships, can null and void his contract because of a performance clause. So too, constructors, if they're outside of the top 3 as at July the 31st, then there is another performance clause, meaning therefore that Maximilian Verstappen can null and void his contract, allegedly. Stay tuned. I think over the next month we're going to hear some things. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, is going to step up his claim for one Maximilian Verstappen. We've said it a gazillion times, but I will reiterate because it's important now, more important now than ever. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, will drop kick in the chest King George Russell of Kingsley in Norfolk if he gets the chance just to have just a whiff even. Get your words out, Cameron, of a Maximilian Verstappen signature. It's going to get techie, I'm telling you. Strap in, chat, because it's going to get techier than techie things. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Cameron been going off the rails a bit since Max Verstappen hasn't been doing very well. Really, Gapri? I mean, I hope it... I don't know what you mean, Gapri, to be honest. Straight shooting settings. We can have a conversation. Are you joking, Cam? The speed level difference was way bigger and it's wet with spray. He dropped 100 miles an hour with double the pressure of Russell. Why the anti-Lando stance? It's unreasonable. We haven't even touched on Lando yet, but we can talk about Lando Norris in a bit. Lando did well, But this is an Olivier Panis type win, 1996 Monaco. Sometimes you just need to make the least mistakes, right? You don't need to do anything fantastic. Of course, Lando kept it on the island. Qualifying wasn't half bad either. He did kind of what you'd expect him to do. But more importantly than that, in the race Sunday where you win all the points, he made less mistakes than Oscar and Max. Full stop, new paragraph. 25 points. His home Grand Prix race victory, maiden home Grand Prix race victory, and that's got to mean something. If you see the bloody celebration when the dude dropped off the wall and glazed his nose, it makes me feel bad. I wanted to see the picture of Lando holding up the trophy to his contingent, his fans, and they were there for him en masse today and this weekend. It was Lando's Grand Prix. He was right pre-race, and he did what he needed to do. Am I going to give him a 10 out of 10 for it, for winning because of other people's mistakes? I can't, but he did what he needed to do. And again, Murray Walker always used to say, to finish first, one must first finish. And that was Lando's modus operandi today. However, the big story is this. Oscar Piastri, 10 seconds. What? Houseway? What? Why? I thought Mohammed bin Sulayem and the FIA were running this ship on consistency now. Precedent, settings. Why the difference, therefore, between Oscar Piastri's penalty and whatever George got? I don't think George even got a penalty, did he? What's the point? And again, Maximilian Verstappen, not for want of trying Max and Christian Horner. They marched straight to the stewards, didn't they? But they said, you know what, nothing to see here. We're not going to give him a penalty at the altar of mitigating circumstances. Here's what Chris Medland, again, all F1 journals are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. Here's what Chris Medland tweeted about this circumstance and the difference in the variables of Oscar's penalty and George not getting one in Canada. On Oscar's penalty, the rules say he must proceed at a pace which involves no erratic braking nor any other manoeuvre which is likely to endanger other drivers from the point at which the lights on a safety car are turned off. Oscar Piastri jumped on the brakes to the tune of 60 psi. Travelled very quickly down from 100 miles per hour plus. That is dangerous, absolutely. But where, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, is the precedent? So there's a difference in extents and not kinds. But if you cross the line in football, it's a flipping goal. It doesn't matter whether you hit the net. And herein lies the bloody problem. There's far too much interpretation baked into this decision-making process by the FIA. Chris Medland continues, when asked on Twitter about the difference between George and Oscar's instances. He says the difference between George in Canada is that wasn't a race restart, and on that occasion Russell's brake pressure was only 30 psi, half of Oscar Piastri's 59.2 psi, more aggressive, more erratic driving therefore, plus the safety car lights went off late, but after Piastri's in control with everybody waiting to floor it. That's techie. Then techie things. I think they need to sort out their house, the FIA, because this is always going to be the way. They might not intend to be British bias. They might be playing with a straight back. They might be, but you can forgive F1 fans all around the world, particularly naysayers, non-fans of Lando Norris, non-fans of a historic legacy of British bias, for thinking, hang on, you wanted Lando Norris to win because it fits the narrative. It was perfect. More attention dollars, more eyes, etc., etc. Especially when George did, if not exactly the same thing, something very similar only a couple of races ago and got zero penalty. What are we doing here? Consistently inconsistent will be on the epitaph of the FIA when all is said and done. Full stop, new paragraph. And Oscar Piastri was none too pleased. Again, Mr. Stoicism, cares not, unbotherable. You can't perturb Oscar Piastri. He's always here, right? Flatlining. That's who he is, and that's his strength. Some might say, not this race though. You heard him in the post-race when he was in the car and having conversations with his Tom Stollard race engineer. This is what Oscar Piastri said, and I quote, "I think I would get myself banned if I say anything here. At least Hulkenberg got a podium. Not everything was bad." Oscar Piastri put in a request to the team in the race, in the dying embers of, saying that should we switch? if we deemed that my 10-second penalty that I had to serve in the bloody pits after leading the whole race, having time in hand, if we deem Zach Brown, Andrea Stella, that penalty not to be fair, to be an injustice by the FIA, then why don't we swap us around? To which Tom Stollard, his race engineer, came over the radio and said, you know what, mate, we're not doing any team orders. What? Look, now you can forgive now Oscar Piastri for thinking that McLaren see Lando as the prodigal son. Why wouldn't they swap us around? If we all agree that the 10 seconds was unjust, then swap us around. I've done everything hitherto up until that point in the race to earn myself a race victory, top step at the podium. I know it's Lando Norris's maiden voyage at his home Grand Prix, but give me what I deserve. You could see Oscar Piastri's demeanour in the cool-down room as well. When asked by Hulkenberg what happened, he said he was given a 10-second penalty for his behaviour under the safety car through gritted teeth, and I think quite rightfully so. Oscar Piastri was done over here, right? Injustice settings. Now, whether you can attribute that to British bias, whether they wanted the narrative to be Lando winning his home Grand Prix and a celebratory British contingent, whether you want to make those arguments, I don't know. It's techier than techie things. But even Max Verstappen chimed in, And when you consider that Max is, he's as far as protagonists and rivalries for the championship, Max Verstappen won't want Oscar Piastri to gain any more points on him. 69 points is the difference as at the time of writing in the driver's standards. Max Verstappen came out and said that 10-second penalty was very extreme. And if anybody was on the bad end of Oscar Piastri's behaviour, it was Max Verstappen. Max will remember only a couple of races ago at Canada when they all marched into the stewards' room and had the conversation about George's, in inverted commas, erratic behaviour behind the safety car. Yeah, it was 30 psi, half of Oscar Piastri's 59, but yet and still, this is a difference in extents and not kinds. And herein lies the bloody principal point of contention. The FIA need to rewrite the rules now. It's gone too far. It is just ridiculous. If the ball crosses the line, then it crosses the line. It doesn't matter whether it hit the back of the net or is in off top bins. It does not matter. And herein lies the problem as far as the FIA are concerned. The sporting code of conduct and the rules and regs, they're written as if a 5-year-old has penned them. Interpretation. Do you know what I mean? Of course, there's always going to be shades of grey. There will always be areas of grey because this is Formula 1, not football. But minimise for them, surely. Am I barking up the wrong tree here? Lest we wish to always be having these bloody conversations. Too harsh. What's the president? Oh, it's different to George Russell. Therefore, it must be British bias. There is agency in this. Lando was brilliant today. Go on then. Let's address this. Was Lando brilliant today? Or did he benefit from a Maximilian Verstappen mistake and an Oscar Piastri uncharacteristic mistakes both? Non-rhetorical question, for which I don't know the answer. Oscar Piastri, if I'm having a word with, if I'm Mark Webber and we're diatribing, no post-morteming for Oscar Piastri's race, I'm going to ask the question, chap, risk to reward calc. You had the race in the back pocket. It was in your hands. All you needed to do is not make any mistakes. Max wasn't going to overtake you anyway because he had no bloody downforce and it was changeable conditions. So why did you need to brake so hard then? What was the reward as versus the... It makes no sense. It just makes no sense. 10 seconds wasn't unprecedented. Are you referring to Checo Perez so many cycles ago? Like, I think it was unprecedented. That's techie. Even if it was 5 seconds, Lando was catching him. Go on then. Lando was catching him, but I don't see. But for that penalty, look how close they finished. 10-second penalty. Maybe Lando, you could argue, turned down his engines. Brilliance. I'm not buying that characterization. Oscar P1, Max P2, Hamilton P3. We're talking about driver of the day settings there. 2016 Merc has nothing to do with McLaren. Maybe. Lando capitalised on opportunity. He wasn't the fastest or the best driver. Start with you. You are echoing my sentiments, sir. He absolutely was not the best. I don't think he was anywhere near. Like, he just wasn't the best today. But he was... Some would say that if you win, then that makes you the best, right? But I'm focusing on process here. He just made the least mistakes. And he said as much after the race. He said, listen, I just wanted to trend down my mistakes to zero. Errors of the unforced variety filtrate out for them. And I don't hate it. He deserves what he got. Absolutely deserved to win when lights of Max and Oscar in particular, are making those mistakes of material consequence, unnecessarily so as well. That's so unlike Oscar Piastri. Neil says Lando did what he needed to do and was the fastest driver on track towards the end. He was good enough to win, and that's all he needed to do. I don't hate it, Neil. I think you've summed it up more eloquently and succinctly than I ever could. Lando benefited from a mistake. Simple. His skills did not win him the race. Ugh. Are those two things that orthogonal, though, Chiba? Are you not? Is that not a contradiction in terms? Peter Wins accorded with McLaren having too much wing unless we get rain. Yeah, good shout. G3, not at all Lando fan, but he was clean, brave, and congratulated Oscar. Yeah, on to the next one. 10 seconds. Are they mad? It's techie. And we're going to be talking about it. The sad thing about this is that Lando's win is going to be overshadowed by two things. The Nico Hulkenberg 15-year podium search now fulfilled, and the controversy. What FIA, what are they doing? 10 seconds? What? Based upon what? How? This is nonsense. I don't know. Even as Chris Medland posts those details about why he got the 10-second penalty and why it was a different circumstance to George, I'm rendered baffled. It just makes no sense. And then Oscar Piastri said a couple of different things in the post-race scrum, didn't he? Said one thing to Sky Sports. He didn't want to talk about it too much, didn't want to be drawn, because he realises that the downside ramifications are even more material yet and still. If he comes out and talks bad about the FIA, then he might get a big penalty. You know that clause in the rules and regs that talks about bringing the FIA into disrepute and causing moral harm. That's so broad and all-encompassing that if you say if you say dog about the FIA, you could get hit with an additional penalty and or a fine. So Oscar's just like Max was a couple of races ago. So I don't really want to be drawn on it. But then when he spoke to Sky Sports Italia, he got a bit techie. Did you think that you deserved that penalty? Oscar Piastri responded, I don't think I deserved that penalty. What I think I deserved is the race lead at the very least. That's why I pitched it to my team that should we invert? If we think that 10-second penalty was an injustice, surely an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. Therefore, invert the places Oscar Piastri was suggesting, to which his race engineer, Tom Stoddard, legend, Mr. Oxbridge, Olympian rower, said, no, we're not effecting for team orders here. Not at the British Grand Prix. Not in Lando Norris territory. Not to sabotage this fella's maiden voyage at his home Grand Prix. It's techier than techie things. You see why I address it in those terms, because you could be forgiven for thinking that this is all sabotage at the altar of Captain British bias. It's techier than techie things, this. It is techie, and maybe it was well intended, but you can forgive Oscar Piastri, OJP, for going to bed tonight thinking that the world is against him, that he came to UK, he did everything that he needed to do. Do you know what I mean? Harassed Maximilian Verstappen in a way that probably only he can. Mature, patient, and then he makes one silly little error and gets punished to the tune of 10 seconds. What are we doing here? This makes no sense. Now go and watch Oscar go berserk. I think he's going to come sit. I think this could be season altering as far as the relationship between McLaren pairing. I don't think he's going to be so friendly. I was looking at a couple quotes from Oscar Piastri about Lando Norris, and he's always been quite diplomatic. There's an underlying serious and an underlying seriousness, even, and not quite malice, but cool. When he's talking about the terms, if you couch the way that Oscar talks about Lando, there is it's rivalry. They are not friends, at least from Oscar's perspective. They are rivals, and that's going to ratchet up now. I think Oscar's had enough. I don't think he has any patience. Why can't Cam give Lando any credit at all? G Cullis, didn't I give Lando credit? I thought I said I think I straight shooter settings. He made 0 mistakes, and that's why he won the race. If Oscar Piastri doesn't get silly, start drinking from his cup of silliness, then we're having a different conversation. Now, Lando's brilliant. Don't get it twisted, G Cullis. Lando's brilliant when he's ready. When he's at his Weetabix, there's very few on the grid that can catch him. in a qualifying session or otherwise. He's rapid, but today I don't think it was his finest day. He can celebrate it, but bloody Nora, as if they're going to swap them back so they can't both break each other off. Well, let's see how it goes, G Cullis. We've got a long season ahead. Lando Norris needs to bring his own game next couple of races in particular, because Oscar Piastri is not looking to have it. I can tell you that much. Piastri is deprived. Easy G. Oscar performs when he is calm. Doesn't suit him. I can't bloody know. I cannot think of plenty British drivers that are more passive aggressive. So France. Oh, the humanity. How did Lando cheat? Nobody's saying that Lando cheat. Right, guys, I'm going to run. Techier than techie circumstances. The summary of the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix that is the British one is in the books. I don't know how to summarise it. Norris is a clown. Okay, G Colours, let me tell you this. The reason why I don't think many people extend Lando much sympathy is because of some of the comments that he's made, right? Always writing checks with his mouth that his ass cannot cash. Lewis Hamilton. You've had the best car for 7 years now. It's easy to win when you've got the best car, said Lando Norris to Lewis Hamilton's face. It's easy. You've only got to beat your teammate, Valtteri Bottas. Lando's words, not mine. Next season will be my season. Lando's words, yet again, not mine. So he's got to deliver upon that, right? He has to become Arjan Lando Norris 2.0, lest he wish to be deemed a bottler. I know the term is really, really harsh. But if he doesn't get it done this year, as he didn't manage to do last year, if yet again he sees his defeat from the Moors, no jaws of victory, then people are going to come down on him like a ton of bricks, if not purely because of some of that stuff that he's been saying. Well, going to get techier than techie things. Roll on the next race weekend in a few weeks to see how these boys interact with each other. Oscar Piastri will be less tactful, less diplomatic, less extend Lando Norris less grace, because they're competing for the same thing now. There is only one championship of the drivers' variety, and I think Oscar Piastri's season to date has been more deserving of that accolade than the one they call Dustin from Stranger Things. But I digress.